Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we're going to be starting a new series, and this series will be us working on our latest purchases, which are our three Bolens Ride-a-matics, this one being our 1961 Rideamatic, and either side I have two of our 1962 Rideamatics. So since getting these tractors, we have done a bit of work to them. For example, this 1962 had tons of metal work that had been mounted on the front, and we took all of that off. And we also put our spare set of Rideamatic front wheels on there, but unfortunately the tyre on that side isn't keeping air at the moment, so we're going to have to do something about that. And we did some investigation about what parts this would need. Now the 1961 that I'm sitting on, we put new front tyres on as well, greased up the front end and replaced the grease nipple that was non-existent on there. Then we haven't really done very much when it comes to this other 62 Rideamatic. However, we have had a chance to kind of look over all of them, and what we found is that each and all of them have different modifications or issues, and all of them have been modified in slightly different ways. So the idea behind this project is to have all three of them side by side so that we can kind of copy the original bits off of some of them and replicate it so that we have three electric start Rideamatics that are all back to original. And we have already got some parts to do this, which we'll show you in a minute. So as you just saw, we've got plenty of parts to be fitting and getting on with, but we previously mentioned kind of copying bits from other tractors, so let's kind of go through some of the differences. Now if we start on this one, this is the Rideamatic that I would say is in worst shape. However, the wiring, although in poor condition, follows the proper factory routing and appears to be all original, so we can kind of use this as a copy, or not a copy, as a guide for how we should do the other ones. This one here has just kind of loose connections, so we need to work out what some of those do and work out why they're there. The downside with this one is we haven't a clue what's going on with this wiring. There's a jump cable here that's attached to the starter motor, so that's obviously got some stuff that needs sorting on it. However, when we're talking about wiring, I think one part of this is definitely right, which is this positive battery cable, except for the fact that there isn't a connector on that end, but we think the routing of that is correct. On the one next to it, it's somewhat correct, it just kind of goes the wrong way around the seat bracket, we think. And then on this orange one, it's non-existent, so that's one wiring part that we need to make up. Now, starter motors. On this one, this has the correct spring bracket attached to that. However, there's no spring on it, so this will need a spring being bought for it. And also, to go over this belt housing, at some point we'll want a proper belt guard, but those are very rare. On the 61 here, this has the original spring mount point, which is in good condition, and it's got the right springs, so that's all complete, just needs a nut on that end. And this did come with the original belt guard, but obviously we need to sort out all of the business with the flywheel first before we can mount that. Then on this one, it doesn't have the correct mounting point or spring, so we're going to have to make up a mounting point probably on the lathe and then put a spring on there. Again, this will need a belt guard at some point to be 100% original. Now to go over the large amount of parts that we've got, and first off, three of these. They are all the ignition locks. All of these tractors have non-standard ones, so one for this, that's the only part we have for this tractor. One for this one, and one for that one. Now we will move back to the 61 Rideamatic. This has a number of non-standard parts, but the first thing we'd be fixing is the fact that the rear tyres are pretty much square, so we try and fix that by putting some new inner tubes in the back. I'll place those down there because we've got a lot of stuff for this. Next we have sort of the original replacement bolts for these fixings. These are non-standard on the hood at the moment, so we've got the standard ones to switch on at some point. Here we have a steering wheel from a Bolens 600 that was saved from the scrap heap. Obviously we've got the issue of part of the steering column still being in there, and the steering wheel isn't in the best condition, but at least this puts this tractor back to original, and if when it comes to restoring this in the future, we would get rid of this steering wheel for a better one. But that's just to put everything back to original for now. And then we have a big box here, which, as it says on the top of the box, we have a new seat pan, which we will be taking off that big non-standard seat and putting this on here, which, funnily enough, this green pretty much matches the non-standard paint on this tractor too, so it's quite fitting. Try and balance these so they won't fall off in a second. That should do. Right, now onto this 62 Rideamatic, and we've got quite a few parts for this because it has bits missing off the Rideamatic system and such. Now those parts you can hardly ever find in the UK, so we got them from a Rideamatic collector in the US, so thank you very much, Kevin. But if we look through what we got from him, here is the first of the Rideamatic pulleys, and that doesn't have any bearings in, but not a problem because we've bought the bearings there to go in it. Next up, another one of the pulleys. This one goes at the bottom and should have the drive chain connected to it. Obviously this tractor doesn't have one of those, so we bought one of these off of Kevin too. And finally, this is the shaft that goes through this pulley and has the two deck pulleys on either end. So this means that we can fully assemble this. Is kind of juggling parts here to get them all laid out. That should be all of the parts we need for the Rideamatic. Now to go with those, obviously you need belts to connect them, so we've got two new belts here. Pop one there. Now, something else we've got another spare tyre and a tube, which we'll switch onto here to get rid of that flat one, because we can't be dealing with flat tyres if we're going to be moving these around a lot. Now for some more general parts that aren't specific to these necessarily. You can see there's 4 mini boxes in here, all of them are identical, and in these are replacement fuel caps for 1962 Bolens Ride-a-matics. Obviously we've got 2 here, so both of these will be getting new ones of these, but we have 4 1962 Bolens Ride-a-matics in total, so there's a new one of those for each of them there. And the final part on here that we got from America was this, which is the belt guard that goes on the side of a Rideamatic. This one to fit a 1961 Rideamatic. We have one of those on this one, so it'll probably go on either one of our other 1961 Rideamatics, or this can be adapted to go on a 1962. Having these 3 tractors side by side is perfect for spotting things that aren't quite right. In fact, we've spotted some more. Now on the front axle of this 62, you can see that it's the nut that's facing outwards here, which means that that bolt is facing the wrong way, because as you can see on this one and the other 62, it's the bolt head end on this end or on the front, not the nut, so that needs to be reversed at some point. Next thing we've noticed is the starter motor on this one is held on by quite a thick bolt, which we think is changed from the original, because on the other two it's a much thinner fixing holding that on, which unfortunately means that this has probably been drilled out, so that bracket might need changing if we were to take that back to original, but that might be quite difficult. Another difference is on the deck mounting brackets. That's what the 1961 one looks like, whereas if we pan to the 62, you can see at the back it's got an extra bracket there, which will provide more stability for the deck, which is either an improvement or this 1961 one is missing part of it. So we'll need to kind of compare to other 1961s to find that out. Now, when we got these tractors, these two came with decks with them. The 61 had it all fitted up, so we've got all the fittings for that. However, someone had used bolts instead of pins to hold all of the brackets on. This 62 here didn't have the deck mounted, so we're not sure we have all of the fixings, but that used bolts as well. However, the one that didn't come with a deck on it, but had a deck in the past, this orange one, actually has the proper fixings down there. So we can take those off and copy them. Probably require some lathe work and some other machining, but we can make up copies of that for all three of these machines. Now, another thing we've spotted is on the 61 here. There looks to be a bolt on the Versamatic instead of the roll pin that should be there, which means that you get a lot of movement in each gear. It means you don't get precise speeds. So to fix that, we will probably have to weld up the hole, drill it out again and put a new roll pin through, which is exactly what we did on our blue painted 1961 a good few years back now. Then the final thing that we've spotted, which you really have to have all three side by side to spot this, if we look at the gap between the lift lever here and the steering wheel, not the bonnet, because obviously that's different between 62 and 61, but if you look at lift lever and the steering wheel, imagine this was a bit bigger, because obviously that's the aftermarket steering wheel. These two have pretty much the same angle for the lift lever. Then we move over to this 62, and the lift lever is pointing at a lot less of an angle. It's kind of bent upwards, and if we look down towards the bottom, it does appear to be a bit bent. I'm not sure how well that's going to come up on camera, but the bottom part of that is bent upwards. So at some point we're going to need to take all of this apart, straighten it out, and that will move this further away from the steering column, and hopefully means all of that should move a bit easier. So that's a quick overview of these three tractors from what we've noticed so far. I'm sure we'll find more oddities and issues with them as we go along in this series, but the aim for this series is just to get these three into working condition. They don't have to be perfect, they just have to, run, drive and function as they should do. We'll do the perfecting later down the line. We're currently just focused on getting as many of these Rideamatics running as possible. Speaking of which, the 1960 Rideamatic will still remain the focus. This will just kind of be in between, and it'll kind of allow us for parts delivery time on both these projects and that project. Bit random, but we also have 5 total Rideamatics in here at the moment. The 62 over there, 1960 on the bench, 61 that I'm sitting on, and 2 more of our 62s. So that's most of our Rideamatic lineup here. But please do let us know in the comments section down below what you think of this project we are starting. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.